now come to the end of the symposium, and to moderate the closing session of our two-day event, it's a pleasure for me to call to the lectern Boubacar Djibo, and Mr. Djibo is the director of the Air Transport Bureau of ICAO. Boubacar, it's all yours.
Merci. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being with us. We know it's a very special session at the end of the symposium, and we have the UK reception after, and tomorrow the high level. So, but at least we'll try to make it very interesting, interactive. So, I think it's really a special panel. Why? Because we have with us two chairs of the committee and one regional director. So I will begin by Mr. Pagé, who is the representative of Canada to the ICAO Council and the chairperson of the Unlawful Interference Committee, which means that any issue related to security is under his oversight. You have Mr. Samuel Lucas, representative of Australia on the ICAO Council, who is the chair of the Air Transport Committee, which means also that he has the oversight of Annex 9 issue, which means, of course, including the related provision, the border facilitation provision, which are interest for security. And to bring to you the regional perspective, we have Mr. Mohamed Rahma, which is the Regional Director, Cairo Office. So for us, that panel is, has been built to be able to see what we will bring from that symposium, what you heard, you learn, you exchange on Monday also, and moving tomorrow to the high-level security. So my plan is to make it very easy. I will make a short introduction, at least for us to be at the same level of information. Why do we need security and facilitation? I will not go into technicalities because during several days you heard everything, you know everything, you heard to the leaders, you heard the expert, the industry, airline, airport. So from that perspective, it was very interesting, so you are completely updated. And then I will ask the panelists to give you their insight, what they got from the discussion, the exchange, and if they were to report to the high-level security conference of tomorrow, what would they think is of value? And then Mohamed Rahma will focus on the implementation issue, the regional approach. What we are doing globally, is it good for the region? What are the challenges to implement, to coordinate, to bring the state at the appropriate level? And then, of course, we will go to question and answers, and we hope it will be alive enough to give us the right perspective that we need so that tomorrow morning, when we come and listen formally to the state, at least everybody has the best knowledge and understanding of what we will do. So, very quickly, in addition to the technical perspective that you got on security, what are you doing? You need to realize, understand, anticipate that air transport is growing. It's clear, which means that your efforts has to continue, has to be strengthened, because traffic will grow, the activity will grow. Then, what is the activities that we have today? Today, 4.1 billion passengers. It means that you need to protect, facilitate 4.1 billion passengers. It's not easy. And the traffic will double in 2035. Which means that you will have to protect, facilitate 8 billion passengers. We are in 2018, 2035, it means that it's coming very soon. 37 million aircraft departure, roughly 100,000 per day. This is what you need to focus. This is where we need the leadership of the Council of the committees. More than 1,400 scheduled airlines. We need to protect them to be sure that they fly safely, securely. More than 26,000 aircraft in services. This is the purpose of your debate. What do we need to do? Tomorrow, what shall we conclude? More than 3,900 airports how to protect them, landside security, whatever you call, linked to the airports. More than 173 air navigation centers. Cybersecurity, overflight, trusted framework, how do we do to ensure that they fly safely? And coming to human beings, 290,000 pilots. We need to protect them because they need to fly safely and they need to fly back home. And more than 80,000 air traffic controllers. So this is the purpose, the scope of what we are doing, and this is why we need your understanding. Then, congestion of airspace, where it happened in the airport, you see it. It's growing everywhere, North America, Europe, Middle East, South Africa, Asia. This is what we need to do. Now, what is the value of what we are doing? First thing, beginning by trade. We represent 1/3 of global trade by air. iPads, gold, diamond, pharmaceutical, everything is booming by air, including e-commerce, which is the future of the air transport. And the value that we get from our partners is $6 trillion US dollars. So if we represent 1/3, it makes $2 trillion US dollars. So this is what we need to protect and make safe. Coming to passengers, half of the tourists fly by air. For small island, Jamaica, Seychelles, it goes up to 85. We need to protect the tourists if you want tourism to grow. So this is the purpose of the exercise we are doing. We know what we are doing now. It applies to those activities, those persons, the trade. What can we get from the exchange, the knowledge sharing, and other activities? Of course, differences among the regions. And you see also the global passenger traffic by country of departure. You know where we will have congestion of airspace, issue of screening everybody or not, issue of airspace, issue of queuing, etc., etc. So, and then don't forget that aviation is changing. The center of gravity of aviation was over the Atlantic because the traffic trade between Europe and United States was the most important now. Now it's moving. Trans-Pacific is more important than transatlantic, which means that trade, travel between Asia and United States now is more important than the transatlantic. So things are moving, and it means that we need to anticipate, to follow, to be able to protect, share, and anticipate where do we need to focus, what is the risk and the threats that we anticipate, where is it coming from. So this is it as an introduction. So now let's, as we have agreed, ask first the chair of UIC. Monsieur le Président du Comité des Interventions Illicites.
Chairperson, Committee on Unlawful Interference, what have you retained from the debates that we've heard today? And if you were to give your opinion for tomorrow morning for the high-level conference, what would be your proposals? What would be your vision? Thank you. Thank you very much, Boubacar. You certainly summarized many things very well. Firstly, I'd like to say that I've learned so much listening to the manufacturers, the regulators, and the operators. I found it to be truly a convergence that I was feeling. We were trying to understand the challenges of all of the parties, and so I learned a lot from that. And what I've retained, as you mentioned, with the rapid growth in the number of passengers, and cargo as well, let's not forget cargo, that this leads to greater security challenges. Otherwise, airports will become highly congested areas, and so we have to be careful to make sure that the flow of passengers and cargo and merchandise corresponds to the growing traffic and still flows. We spoke a lot this week about technology. I learned very much about technology. What I also learned is that technology in and of itself is not the solution. It is the human factor that requires focus as well, the two things together. And I learned how slow the certification process is. Therefore, new technologies may take 2 or 3 years to be certified and enter the market. That's an important fact. Another thing that I learned is how to develop a security culture, because this affects everyone in the airport. It affects the personnel, and the personnel have to be the eyes of security. So how will the personnel always want to be on alert to see the weaknesses of the system? So one has to work very closely with the personnel, particularly as airports become mini cities where you buy goods, where there's entertainment offered. There's so many people in the airports. And for me, that was extremely interesting. Another thing that I learned was that there is no single solution for everyone. Someone mentioned that you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. But in fact, all of the situations are a bit different, so we can't impose a single system upon everyone. There has to be an adjustment to take into account risk and results that are optimal. And as for the last question, if I were to say to the HC, the high-level conference, I would say that time is of the essence. We have to work together. We have to help each other. What I really liked was what the UN representative had to say about the 3 C's, about helping everyone. Our people travel throughout the world, and so we really do have to reduce the vulnerabilities both at home and abroad. This is through capacity building, but also we have to react rapidly. GASEP is an important tool, and I've mentioned that. I've been able to go to GASEP regional meetings, and I've seen the differences in the regions, but I've also seen this deep desire to work together and collaborate. Thank you.
Merci, Martial.
Thank you, Marcel and Boubacar. Hello to everyone. It is a great pleasure to address you this afternoon after all of these interesting discussions. But I will take pity upon the interpreters and the ears of the Francophone delegates here today, and I will continue in English.
Boubacar and Martial have summarised nicely much of the discussion that we've heard, and rather than repeating much of that, I really wanted to react to what we've heard today from in my role as chair of Air Transport Committee, looking at things from a facilitation and economic development perspective. And a few things struck me, and I'd really like all of these messages to be heard by the high-level conference. The first is actually a similar comment to something Martial said. A few years ago, a lot of the discussions about aviation security were all about new technology, new screening lanes, new scanning equipment, more accurate scanning equipment. But so much of the discussion over the last 2 days has been about people. It's been about how we train people all around the world, how we build capacity, how we handle insider threats which are posed by the people. The technology is not the source of insider threats, it's the people who are. And that recognition of the central place that people play and that people's strategies need to play in addressing security is a very important lesson for us to take forward. I was also struck by the fact that if you strip away from some of the discussions we've been hearing and take it back to the core principles we're talking about, we're often not talking about aviation security specific issues or even aviation specific issues. Instead, we're talking about institutional quality, we're talking about governance, we're talking about training, about empowering people, building a performance-based culture that engages with risk. In all of these things, we need to remember the importance of general public governance, public administration, and finding collaborative and consultative ways to do our business. Similarly, We hear messages about capacity building and the importance of leaving no country behind. And similarly, no airline, no airport, no region behind. We have to lift capability across the globe. This is not an aviation-specific issue. It's a common issue across not only the whole of the civil aviation industry, but much of the UN system and broader international perspectives as well. Doing this requires a system that engages with risk and that regulates to achieve outcomes and not to tick boxes. And this is another message I really want to go forward to the high-level conference. We need, as an aviation community, and then we as ICAO, as the standard-setting organisation, we as a community of regulators, need to find ways to better engage with risk, to take a more appropriate and effective risk-based system into what we do. We cannot face a doubling of air traffic over the next 20 years or so and keep that industry secure if we do not embrace proper risk management and a risk-based approach and an outcomes-based approach to regulation in aviation security. There's been a lot of talk about collaboration as well, and it's a very good thing that we're hearing in these discussions in the last 2 days, I think, that talking is moving beyond traditional views of aviation security collaboration and starting to talk about seeing the airport as a whole and seeing end-to-end airport processes as a whole. This is absolutely essential if we want to take things forward into the future. We cannot keep each and every airport process in a silo. We can't keep aviation security in a silo. We need to be aware of the way that a very sound aviation security measure can be a problem from an aviation safety perspective and vice versa. And then beyond that, we need to make sure that we do sometimes very common sense things. If you will permit me to speak from an Australian experience for a moment to illustrate this, we've been doing some work in Australia to try and utilise better some of the interventions we are doing with passengers. We did a trial a few years ago with colleagues in New Zealand where having X-rayed baggage on one side of the Tasman for aviation security purposes, we were sending the photos across the Tasman to New Zealand for New Zealand to use them for customs and biosecurity inspection purposes. It was a difficult process to implement. It didn't work all that well at the time, but we learnt important lessons. We're now looking to see how we can better use the same technology to address biosecurity risks for inbound passengers into Australia as we're using for aviation security screening for passengers. This will be essential as we move into the future. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to be perhaps a little bit provocative and be a little bit interactive with you already in this discussion. We've been talking today about collaboration, and we've been talking about the need for engagement across aviation. In this audience, I am guessing that most people are reasonably familiar to some extent with Annex 17 requirements for a national aviation security program. So could I have a show of hands of who in the room has some degree of familiarity with Annex 17 requirements for a national civil aviation security program? Do we see a... Good. I'd have been very worried there if no one put up their hands. That would have been all very wrong. What about the requirements in Annex 9 for a national facilitation program? A lot fewer. So my challenge to those of you who are not familiar with the facilitation program is to highlight that a national facilitation program implemented in accordance with Annex 9 requires states to build a consultative mechanism at the national level and at the airport level to bring together all of the entities involved in moving people and goods through airports, including aviation security agencies, to talk about and coordinate the movement of people through airports. So we actually have already within the ICAO system some of these frameworks that we need to use in order to achieve the collaboration that we've been talking about needing over the last couple of days. So my final message and challenge, really, you didn't ask for a challenge, Boubacar, but I'd like to issue one forth to everyone, including to us here, is to challenge everyone here and to challenge the high-level conference as well. What silo will you break down today?
Good afternoon again. I think you have heard enough from me in the last session, so I will not be that long as the last session. But yeah, I will take it from Mr. Lucas, is the global approach of aviation security. Because aviation security is not a national issue, it's not a regional issue, it's a global issue. If you think that your borders are very well protected, so you are in good shape, no, but your people and your aircrafts are flying around the globe. So then your system is not immune by only protecting your borders and your airports. We have to think globally. Even if investing in aviation security is done on the national level only or the regional level only, this will not help the industry. We have to invest on the global level. Because without having a robust global aviation security system around the globe, any one of us, any state of us will not be immune. Because with the nature of industry, we are connecting all the continents together. How many flights between all the continents in one day? So all these flights are vulnerability to our system, our own system. So we need to think globally, first of all. The second issue is that I heard the word complacency along the 3 days in more than one occasion. Sometimes in the Civil Aviation Authority setup, the Aviation Security Department is not as important as the Safety Department. They are not empowered enough. Maybe there is thoughts that they are not the only entity responsible for aviation security in my state. There are other entities who are working with us at the airport. We have Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense, Intelligence. There is a lot of people out of the setup of the aviation system is working in aviation security. So we tend to say that it's not our own responsibility. But this is not correct. It is our responsibility. The responsibility of all of us at all entities, at all the states. The other thing is that we talked about security and cybersecurity and the challenges that we have. I can imagine that we are here gathering in this room and trying to enhance aviation security with a lot of efforts and investment to do that collectively. But then in another room, in another corner of the world, there are people who are smarter or focused more than we focus. And they might have access to unlimited resources. And these guys are only focusing in infringing our activities and all what we do day by day. To build the system, it's a very difficult process, but to collapse the system, it's an easy process. So there, we don't want to feel that their activities are far easier than what we do. Again, I will come back to Mr. Lucas' conclusion, collaboration. We need to talk more. We need to exchange more. I have the difficulty with many of the states in the region to share information, especially about aviation security. We know it's sensitive. We know it touches the national security. But then information sharing in this issue is vital to all of us. We cannot confine information that could help make our system safer, whether in our airports or for our people who are traveling in the world. The high-level conference, I think it's a good chance that we tell the leaders that aviation security is a paramount part of the industry. Without security, the industry will collapse. We are known to be the safest and the most secure industry of the world, but on the other hand, we are very fragile. We are very attractive to terrorism acts. We have a lot of car accidents every day, but nobody is on CNN all the day until we have a minor issue happens at a single airport at the other end of the world. So we're a very attractive industry, and the bad people are trying to hit us every day. So to counter this, we need to work more together. We need to have not only a national approach, but not only a regional approach, but also a global approach. I have inputs from my panelists that inter-regional approach is also important. Our regions has to talk to each other more. And I think even the Secretary General always reminds us that the regional offices has to work together on issues and exchange information and expertise for the sake of building a robust system through all the regions of ICAO. Thank you, Boubacar.
Thanks to all. I think you've heard different, interesting, but with the same spirit. So now let me be also a little bit provocative after what Samuel was saying. At least, I think he was careful. He talked about coordinating movement of person. He didn't talk about coordination of movement of goods. So why? Because for me it's done. We have a joint brochure, a joint approach with the World Customs Organization. So we communicate now totally in the same consistent way. We are trying to have the same approach through the panels, through the implementation, at least when it touches air cargo. So at least for cargo, it's good, I think. It's done. And the integrators, UPS, DHL, FedEx, are always silent, I think. They don't really express themselves out of the box to say they are not happy with what is happening. So then the question is, why do we still have that challenge for movement of persons? I think we addressed part of it, but what is missing is to say that we have to note that even the gas heap was based also on the United Nations Security Council resolution, which shows that what is more important than years before is the coordination between aviation security and global security issues. And I think when we talk about landside, we talk about the PEDs and other, it shows that, as you were saying, aviation is targeted. It's not at the beginning an aviation issue, but because aviation is targeted, because it's a critical infrastructure, we need to be able to react. Then we still have the value of the question posed by Samuel. Why are we not yet succeeded for the movement of person? Interregional sharing of information. I think the debate is open, and we will be pleased maybe to listen to a first round of questions. Do we have already some questions from the audience? No? One question. Yes, please. So do we need to read it, or how do you proceed? Do you have the owner of the question? Yeah, it's on the screen. You ask about Annex 17 and Annex 9. Why are the security requirements of Annex 6 so rarely discussed and audited? In-flight security is surely also our responsibility. So shall we open a debate or in-flight, cockpit door, and others? Who want to take that question? Yeah, Sam?
That is genuinely a very good question, and I think it highlights one of the lessons we need to take out of this, that there are connections between all of these annexes, between so many different facets of the way the aviation system is regulated, and those interconnections and the need to view those connections properly and see the security of the system as a whole is something that will increase more as we get more and more into the challenges of tackling cybersecurity challenges as an organisation. Because as we're into some of these questions, we need mechanisms, and the ICAO cybersecurity trust frameworks proposed at the Air Navigation Conference recently provide some of the measures to start addressing this, to help secure the various electronic chains and electronic linkages that exist in the aviation system and through into aircraft. And this becomes relevant to airworthiness of aircraft when you are looking at how you secure the various electronic components in the aircraft. So the short answer to the question put before us by Anonymous, who must be the most prolific question asker, is yes.
This is a very interesting question because, when you mentioned cockpit doors, after an event, we created a cockpit door system. After another event, we changed the system because we did not foreseen what could be another effect of the cockpit door being in place. So, it reminds me of when I was in Panama for the regional meeting. I was just a brand new UIC chair, and there was a question from the audience. They asked me, "What is the most important threat that you think you see in aviation?" And I was new. I said, "Well, it's whatever the old threat and the current threats are the most important. We have to treat them all the same and work with the same kind of rigor to prevent them." But I forgot one thing, is that probably the most important threat is the one we don't know yet, is the unknown threat. And we have to look at all the systems and to imagine, and I think it was someone yesterday was talking about, to imagine what is the new threat, the one that you have not thought about. And so all the annexes would be important in that respect.
Thank you. So we have two more questions. Let me begin by the first one. When will we harmonize employee insider security protocols? We have very advanced technology for passengers and virtually none for employees at some airports. Mohamed, yes?
I think it was clear in these 2 days that the issue of insider threat is a real issue. So maybe this is one of the things that we need to pay more attention at. Probably this is a good chance when we have the high-level conference tomorrow. We have seen a number of occasions where insider threats were paramount in many of the incidents that we're having in our industry. There are also good benchmarking in some states of the insider threats, where we have people get into the gates with fingerprints or with decoded cards. So there are some good initiatives. But then, as I said, it's not at all states and not at all levels. So we need to make a baseline for the minimum that we can do about minimizing the insider threat. Part of the insider threat comes from a bad security culture. We have to work also on the security culture in order to improve the acceptance of the employee and the staff of the work that they are doing. Sometimes they are not really very aware of the importance of what they are doing, their importance to the country, their importance to the economy of their country. It's very important to have this robust and secure system in order for the states to be able to receive tourism, to do trade. So again, insider threat definitely needs more attention, and we need to develop or work with other entities to develop at least a baseline of the minimum requirements that airports should have to minimize this insider threat. Thank you.
Just to add to Mohamed's comments on insider threat, I think this is actually a very good example of where we as an aviation system need to take measures to address a threat. The exact measures that we need to take will vary from country to country according to the risk profile, the threat profile, and the domestic situation of individual states. So I wholeheartedly agree that we need efforts to address insider threat, but it is, I would commend an issue where we need an outcomes-based process that specifies the outcome that we want to see, not necessarily a prescriptive approach that tries to prescribe one measure that may work in one country or one area of the world, but won't necessarily work as well, as efficiently, or as well as other mechanisms may work in other parts of the world.
Fully agree, Sam. And in fact, you know, again, the risk-based outcome, looking as an outcome that we are looking for, it's at the airport, you have people doing different things, going to different portions of the airport, so you cannot have a one-size-fits-all even in one airport. If you go to a certain section, you should have a different system and different checks. So I think we have to look at the risk level and to adapt the situation to the risk level and to review it on a regular basis. We have to review our system. And you know, sometimes it may be also good to ask our staff their views about what are our vulnerabilities in our systems. Sometimes when people are working in an area, they will see things, they will look at what could be improved. So ask the staff what can be changed or improved, or perhaps adapted to new situations.
Thank you. So let's take one question which seems simple but very interesting. How can we put in practice the one-stop security? It seems very simple, but I think the answers can be very interesting. And before giving you the floor, just for your information, last week we were in Guyana, the English Guyana, Georgetown, and the CARICOM states, which are mainly English-speaking Caribbean island, and Guyana, the English Guyana, which is on the continent, decided to put a regional approach for one-stop security. And they are at the very beginning of the process, and we discussed with them informally, and I think that they realized that it was not so simple. You cannot only consider the region, you need to consider the international flight coming in and out all the region. So, who wants to take the risk to say how to put in place one-stop security?
Someone wants to take it?
I'm tempted here to make a joke about never stand between a council representative and the opportunity to make a speech about something. Here I'd actually offer two observations. One of them is to ensure that one-stop security mechanisms are put in place within an ICAO context, within an ICAO framework, working within the provisions that are in Annex 17 relating to this. And then my other observation that I would make, if I may, not so much as an Air Transport Committee Chair observation, but as an Australian observation, is via collaboration with partners. Ideally, you really need at least 3 partners involved in any one-stop security conversation. And as you implement one-stop security mechanisms, you need to implement them in full collaboration. We're back to that collaboration word again, with all of the partners who will be affected. One-stop security arrangements have scope to be an incredibly useful tool for the industry in meeting the challenges of those graphs that Boubacar was showing earlier of exponential growth in traffic. But it requires a lot of trust, and building that trust requires a lot of exchange of information and building of relationships.
Yeah, I do agree that the full cooperation and collaboration is really important to achieve this on the national level. The state, as a state, has to know that this is something achievable and it works for the system. Another issue which is more challenging is the infrastructure issues. Sometimes the airport designs themselves for not allowing us to do the one-stop security. And you can see this especially at the smaller airports, where in order to implement this concept, you need to do major changes to the infrastructure at airports. I remember in the last aviation security group meeting in mid-office, it was held in Kuwait, we had a very interesting presentation from Oman, and I think Nasser is here who did the presentation. It speaks about the prior coordination with all stakeholders before designing a new airport. they have to agree on the concepts, what this airport is good for, how it will serve people, the kind of traffic that this airport will be focusing in, and the coordination with all other stakeholders in aviation security on the requirements to implement a specific system like one-stop security. So again, it's doable, but it needs a coordination and it needs advanced preparation, especially in the design of the new infrastructure at airports facilities.
Yeah, I would just say the same thing: advanced collaboration and a lot of preparation and a lot of trust, and to review it on a regular basis again.
Thanks. I think that the author of question is happy. If not, we can continue. One maybe different question here, and I don't know if we, what is the opinion of this panel and the moderator on the creation of the global air, I think, a facilitation plan. I think F means facilitation. So it's a debate which is very interesting. We have, let me introduce just the subject. we have one annex, Annex 9, facilitation, and we have Annex 17, security. And of course, as we said already, the border facilitation provision of Annex 9 are very useful for security aspects. And this is why you see API, PNR used to facilitate really the security improvement. So now we have the GASIP, which is the Global Aviation Security Plan. Is there value to have a separate Global Aviation Facilitation Plan? So one input is to say that most of the provision of Annex 9 doesn't relate to aviation authorities. Health, quarantine, visa, control addresses other bodies of the state. So it's an interesting question, and I think I will not answer before the panelists. I have my ideas, but I think that we can ask maybe first the chair of ATC.
Yeah,
I think he's in charge.
I think you have priority.
Merci, Boubacar.
Thank you, Boubacar.
Well, perhaps answer. I'm happy to offer an opinion on this, but I will answer not necessarily as chair of the Air Transport Committee, but as representative of Australia to ICAO. And in saying that, for those of you who don't know my background, as a former chair of the facilitation panel, and having spent many years working with facilitation issues, I must admit that I am not an enthusiast for the concept of a global aviation facilitation plan, and there are a couple of reasons for that. One is that I think that facilitation is a field that has a range of differences from those fields where ICAO has been very successful with the global plan concept, particularly the safety and air navigation fields, and we're starting out with a global plan in the security field. But these are areas where we have a much stronger basis for getting the international direction, the unified international direction that comes from having an ICAO global plan. Facilitation is an area where if we, in my opinion, if we really wrote a plan that says what should everyone in the world do to improve facilitation, it would be very simple. It had one sentence, and it would say implement Annex 9. Beyond that, we're just into added complexity, and added complexity means added cost, and it means more time spent by member states and ICAO in talking about the plan, reporting on the plan, promoting the plan, rather than getting out and building capacity around the world, helping member states implement challenging things like API and PNR systems, helping states implement e-passports and the like. So to my mind, I need to be sold on the merits of a global facilitation plan. I'm happy to listen to arguments in favour of it, and I'm happy to be persuaded otherwise eventually. But I am a sceptic on the concept of a global facilitation plan.
in 2 seconds, I very much share your views. There's another question you don't see yet on the screen. It's about, how the GASEP is, how we're doing after a year. And I think as an organization, we have to think about how many plan we can take on and deliver. So the GASEP it's already, quite a complex tool. And we are far from reaching the level of we're supposed to reach by 2020. So to add another plan, I think will be showing a bit too much. So too big of a bone here. I think we have to look, and also we have to look what are our priorities. So again, we have to define our priorities, and then we have a lot of discussion within ICAO about that. And after you define your priorities, then you set up your plans. So I would say yes, eventually, yes, I think it would be a good idea to have one, but I think it's we have to conclude, we have to work on other plans, to conclude the other plans and to work on the other plans before we move on the new plan.
What can I say after the chairman of the Air Transport Committee and the director of Air Transport? Yeah, no, but the facilitation plan is kind of a competitive advantage for each airport, not for each states. This is, the security is you must have. It's something that you must have. And then it's for the sake of the commercial activities at the airport to have this smart facilitation at each airport. And this could be a good competitive advantage to each airport and to each area or each state. So then there is a natural drive for airports and for states to do facilitation by nature in order to be more attractive for hubbing, more attractive for traffic. It's a little bit different from the security plan. And on the resources as well, we are in ICAO, we are suffering, and we can hear clearly, even from the speech of the SecGen, that aviation security is under-resourced. We are suffering from the lack of resources to implement or to do the assistance and the implementation for this aviation security plan. So adding another plan at this stage could be another burden on us in ICAO, another burden on us on the resources, and then the states as well to implement another plan.
Thank you. I think the answer is correct. So, can we go to the first question? We discussed a lot about sharing of information and working on a broader cooperative effort. What are the great challenges in engaging national intelligence and system in the AFSEC system? So, of course, it should not be only the national intelligence agency, we should add the international one. And I think it's a fact now that UN Security Council resolution is calling everybody to work together. There was a summit, so there's a global approach to be sure that everybody talks to everybody. I think it's in line to the first question. So maybe one answer, maybe necessary three.
Okay. Very quickly, I think we see it as a global, intelligence sharing as a global aspect, but I think there are three levels of intelligence sharing. So there's the national within our own member state, how we share the information, or we can do it on a bilateral basis based on MOUs and arrangements, and now we do it on a multilateral as well. So I think the three of them have different challenges. So in terms of intelligence sharing, but I think it's bigger than just the international sharing that we are referring to. No, Djibo?
Very briefly, I think some of the tasks here come back to the same messages we've talked about building a culture and taking a governance approach that embraces collaboration. It is. I won't pretend it's not difficult to try and get intelligence and enforcement agencies who are sometimes predisposed to being agencies that don't like to talk about things with people, to go out and talk about things with people. But in the same way that a well-run and functioning aviation regulatory system needs to bring air transport conversations into discussions with the tourism sector, with the business sector, the security sector needs to bring in all of those actors in a state who have a role to play in securing the system as a whole.
Thank you very much. I've been reminded that we are -5 to 5, and we need to proceed, I think, to next agenda item. But before closing, I think that we must congratulate our panelists. I think they give really the broader perspective that we're anticipating. There are challenges, but there is a vision. And I'm sure that you will share what we have discussed this afternoon with your delegation tomorrow, when you will sit maybe as a national delegation in the high-level security conference. And we are pleased to have Dr. Liu here, the Secretary General. She heard the regional offices saying that they need more resources. And this is what I got from Mohamed input. He was very clever in putting it nicely, but help for the regional offices in charge of assistance. So a round of applause for the panelists, and we will proceed to the next agenda items. Thank you.
And as always, a round of applause for the moderator, Boubacar. And now it is again my privilege to invite to the lectern Dr. Fang Liu, Secretary General of ICAO, for the closing remarks of this symposium.
Thank you, Denis. I'm listening very carefully and also be impressed by the panelists, their thoughtful ideas shared with the participants. Thank you very much. So over the past 2 days at this symposium, we have explored aviation security through the theme of the need to know. So I'm very encouraged by today is the last day of the symposium. We still have so many participants at this meeting. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Topics of discussion have centered around the sharing of information as a key principle of aviation security, and we dug further into the challenges faced in achieving an effective balance between very common sense need-to-know restrictions and benefits of wider and more prompt AFSEC data and information dissemination. Taking into account both the Global Aviation Security Plan, GASIP, and the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2309 and 2396, the symposium focused on risk assessment, security culture, technology and innovation, oversight and quality assurance, and last but not least, certainly, capacity building. These are all critical priorities for us today, and ICAO has been encouraged by the fact that all of the key government and aviation sector domains implicated in addressing them were so well represented here among 800 experts in attendance. Another very successful aspect of AFSEC 2018 at ICAO was the Industry Engagement Day, which kicked off. Each of the 4 sessions organized around this initiative explored how regulators, industry, and ICAO can work better together to advance aviation security through new technologies and innovation. And we were also pleased to be able to offer you a series of related workshops with topics ranging from insider threats to developments in capacity building through the container control program AIR to our newly developed workshop on security culture. As we now reach the conclusion of this event, I think it's important that we reflect together on the critical information and new opportunities which were revealed to us over the past 3 days. The workshops, skytops, plenaries, demonstrations, and exhibition have all served to open our eyes to the many possibilities now before us for pursuing our AFSEC work in innovative and exciting ways. And they have also helped us achieve new perspectives on how to pursue new ways of sharing information with those with the need to know. It was, of course, no coincidence that the topics covered during this symposium align quite closely with the priority outcomes of the GASIP. Indeed, many issues which we have grappled with for years were highlighted to some degree this week. By including ICAO, member states, industry, and other partners in these conversations, we feel that we have established very firm foundations for long-term cooperation in solving these issues. Both the GASIP and the UN Security Council resolutions 2309 and 2396 prod us to action and ensure we do not become stagnant, but continue to seek out and implement the necessary changes. With each new threat report and each innovation demonstrated by those who would do us harm, the resources gathered this week will prepare us for the POP response. This symposium will now be immediately followed by the second high-level conference on aviation security. It will also consider progress on the implementation of the GASIP, including potential adjustments to the plan based on the outcomes of the regional aviation security conferences organized in 2017 and 2018. These propositions will be submitted for consideration by the Council and later for subsequent endorsement by the 40th session of the ICAO Assembly next September. In concluding now, ladies and gentlemen, let me please express ICAO's heartfelt thanks to all who have contributed to this symposium, from the sponsors and exhibitors, to the speakers, to those involved in its many months of preparations. And of course, we must also recognize that it was the passion and inquisitiveness of you, the participants, who really brought value to its sessions and interactions. The formal discussions in this room, the conversations at the exhibition, and informal exchanges and networking on the margins have all contributed immensely to the overall and quite exceptional success of AFSEC 2018. It is my honor to now officially close these proceedings and to wish those of you not staying with us for the conference portion of the AFSEC Week 2018 safe journeys home. We'll all look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for your inspiring closing comments and your call to action. On behalf of the team, again, thank you so much for having been here. You've been a marvelous audience, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.